Coming back from Europe in 1997, pairing up with Greg Murphy, I had such a bad or a terrible year in Europe. I'd learnt a lot, but just my success, my probably confidence was down. I remember going to Bathurst, going across the top of the mountain, chasing Mark Scaife. I think we were 1-2 at the time, passing a back marker, going down into the grate. Again, probably a little bit cocky, thinking I've know all about Mount Panorama and what it needed. But again, I had such a huge learning curve, because what I didn't understand is when you go a half a car width wide going down into the grate, it puts you smack dead into the wall.
Oh, Craig Lowndes has hit big time.
And I slammed the car up against the wall. It was early stages of the race. I slid up on top, got out of the car, the crowd was there. They were obviously cheering and obviously wishing me the best. But then to radio back down to the pits and obviously say sorry firstly to Greg Murphy, sorry to the team because I just destroyed his race. And that was for me a gut-wrenching moment because I'd had such a bad year in Europe and it just followed on in Australia. 2005, we went there. The car was unbelievably fast. We had a great setup. The guys had done a fantastic job within the team. Ivan Muller were pairing up. We obviously started the race. We had a great lead. We clipped the wall earlier on. We'd gone a couple of laps down. So then the focus had changed from not winning the race, but finishing the race. And then again, coming up out of turn 2, for one of the times, it's seeing a car crash. And it was Paul Dumbrell in Larry Perkins's car. And again, all I was worried about is going through the debris, making sure I looked after the car. What I didn't see was the wheel coming from my right, across, and then of course hitting the windscreen.
Oh, look at that!
What on earth has hit this car? I believe it's a wheel.
And we all talked about that diagonal bar that used to be inside the race car, which was designed by Larry Perkins. So coming into the pits, pushing out the front and the rear window, getting Ivan Muller back into the car. He'd gone from complaining about the heat to then the cold, but to finish the race at the end of the day, knowing that we had such a team effort, to be able to do that was such a huge achievement. Going to Bathurst 2003, 2004 with Glenn Seton was one of those great moments in history. Watching Glenn growing up, he'd achieved so much and so many victories, but the one thing that had always eclipsed him was a Bathurst victory.
The great dream has evaporated in the space of a few seconds.
Going there knowing that we had a great opportunity. We were sort of a newly formed team, but with experience of Glenn, myself, having many years up until then, learning the track, learning to understand, to look after the car, the fuel consumption, everything else, we thought we were in good shape. And to have 2 seconds, 2 years in a row, for me was heartbreaking. 1995, we'd come back to Bathurst from the previous year. We'd finished second in 1994, thinking that this was pretty easy. Greg Murphy and I had paired up for the first time. The car was working well. I was a young, brash kid, thinking that I knew everything. And again, to be able to put the car on pole position that year, the car was magical. It flowed across the top of the mountain. We did everything right. We hit the marks, got pole position. Unfortunately, the race didn't go to plan. Lap 13 or 14, the engine actually seized. So we were running second behind Jimmy Richards, chasing him down Conrod. And I remember that it was almost like driving a truck. We're going back the gears, trying to go faster as the engine was starting to seize up.
This looks like it might be all over for this car.
We had enough momentum to roll back into pits, into the bay. The day was over. But to get that pole position, my first pole at Bathurst, knowing that we were the fastest man around that year, was quite memorable. 2012, go to Bathurst with a brand new livery on the car. To have the day glow colours of what Brock ran in the mid-80s was quite special for me. It was something that I grew up as a child watching that car with Brock run around and having a great honour to be able to reproduce that many years later. But it wasn't only just the race, it was the way we revealed the car, to get the car choppered to top a skyline, to get it landed, to get Bev Brock in the passenger seat, and then to drive the car from skyline back into the pit lane, for me was one of those memorable moments. To see all the crowd, to see the roar, the emotions, and then to park the car up, for Bev and I to get out, to stand in front of the car knowing, it gives me goosebumps now, remembering that, knowing Brock was around at the time. And for me, the race itself was one of those just parts of the whole weekend.
And Lowndes has come through from nowhere to be third in this motor race.
But to have that livery on the car was the special moment. 1994, what a great opportunity for a young person I got an opportunity to drive at the Sandown 500, and then the team got me back to partner up with Brad Jones again for Bathurst 1000. One of those all-time childhood memories of being able to go to what I classify is the ultimate racetrack here in Australia, Bathurst 1000. I struggled throughout the whole practice qualifying stages leading into the race. It wasn't to the point where Brock actually sat me down, talked me around a lap of Bathurst, what cracks, what curbs, what I can do to flow the car, and then throughout the race itself, 161 laps, I become more comfortable. I wasn't supposed to be in the car at the end of the race, but way the strategy turned out that I had a great battle with John Bowe, managing to lead the race for a lap and a half, right at the crucial end.
He's got it! He's put one on him up the hill. I didn't think it was possible.
This kid is dynamite.
But unfortunately not being able to get that across the line. So to be there for the first time, to stand on the podium, second position with Brad Jones was one of those childhood dreams of being able to do that, and it came true. 2010 was such a great year for all of us. We went there with a team, a well-prepared car. Mark and I were very fit, we were keen, we were eager, and again, as we got on, we were sort of working on two different sides of the car. Mark was working on the full tank runs, making sure the car was nice, flowing across the top of the hill. I was working on the other side, the qualifying, low tanks, good tyres, and then really at the end of the day at practice, we put on another set of tyres. Going through that lap, again, thinking back on it, we went out of turn one, got a good exit, ran up Mountain Straight, into turn two, hit the rev limiter, went up into the cutting, got through the cutting well, short shifted, went under the tree, crossed the top of the mountain. The car flowed beautifully and hit the rev limiter down into Skyline, over Skyline, down into the dipper, through Forest Elbow, down Conrod Straight, and almost touching 300 kilometres an hour, down into the chase, around the last corner, and then just see that lap time come up on the dash at 2 minutes 6.8 was quite incredible. We finally eclipsed the Greg Murphy all-time lap record. 2010 started off so well. Pairing up with Mark Scaife, going there again with great high hopes of another victory of Mount Panorama, every boyhood dream. We went through our practice, qualifying, got into the race, and everything was running smoothly until Scaife popped a rib out. And it was one of those moments when I got in the car, I left pit lane, and the radio call was, "How are you, Craig? How are you feeling? Can you do multiple stints?" Not knowing what the problem was already going on in pit lane. And it was one of those things that I just had to focus on, just doing stint after stint after stint. And doing a semi-long distance myself was one of those great feelings at the end of the day, getting that victory.
This victory will make them Bathurst immortals. It's a 1-2 for Team Vodafone.
Standing on that top step, knowing that I'd done almost half to three-quarters of the race on my own in one single stint. It was quite an unbelievable feeling. 1996 was one of those magical years. We'd already won the Touring Car Series. We'd gone on to win the Sandown 500. We went to Bathurst with Greg Murphy with high hopes of being the second ever person to have the trifecta. And to run throughout the week of Bathurst with no problems with the car, no problems with the drivers is pretty rare. But it was one of those unbelievable years that everything just ran faultlessly. The car ran perfectly, Greg and I did our jobs, and to have the great finish we did at the end of 1,000 kilometres was quite a magical moment.
Craig Lowndes wins the 1996 AMP Bathurst 1000.
To stand on top of the podium for the first time, to see all those people underneath you, was one of those great feelings that you very rarely get. 2006 was always going to be quite a tough weekend of motor racing. Going to Mount Panorama that year, it was 2 weeks after the passing of Peter Brock, and it was something that we went there with high hopes. We all wanted to win the race in the memory of Peter Brock, but to be able to drive his 1972 Bathurst winning Tirana around on the parade lap behind James Brock was such a huge honour for me. And to have all the cars lined up on pitch straight prior to the start of the race, having Bev Brock come up and give me a hug and basically saying, "Peter's with you today," and then to go through the race knowing that Peter was somewhere in the car, somewhere beside me.
Lowndes has done it on the day he farewelled his friend.
And then to stand on the top step at the end of the day was one of those unbelievable feelings.